Not only are you getting all the news you need here in Kansas City, around the country, and around the world every day on KCMO Talk Radio, you are getting the best NFL draft analysis in town, the best predictions in town. Here was our man yesterday, Mark Van Sickle, predicting exactly what the Chiefs were going to do. Mark, I know you've done like 73 mock drafts, so you might have a player for me that you like tonight.
Yeah, I've got, Josh Simmons, the offensive tackle from Ohio State.
I've seen his name.
If he falls down, he's been a little bit injured, but he's one guy.
There you go. You nailed it there, Mark. Happy Friday, buddy.
Oh, man. I was excited about that pick. It was between him and Luther Burden, I thought, from Mizzou. And I was like, we got to get the offensive tackle of the future.
Well, that's what they got last night. They actually traded down one pick from 31 to 32 with the Eagles of all teams. They pick up a fifth-round pick in the process, and the Chiefs get their man, offensive tackle Josh Simmons from the Ohio State Buckeyes. So the left tackle of the future, he did suffer a knee injury in October of this past season. That's why he fell down a lot of draft boards. How is that knee? How is he going to recover from the injury? But he's 6'5". He is 310 pounds. He was considered a top 10 to 20 prospect, and he falls to 22. Here's what Andy Reid had to say about him last night after the draft.
Josh, we felt was a phenomenal athlete. Would have been a higher pick, obviously, if he hadn't been hurt. Rick Burkholder has done a bunch of work on him, and he's in a good place. He had a patellar tendon injury to his left knee, and then it's healed well. He's gone through all the rechecks that he's been required to do, and we'll just see where it goes from there, whether he does a rookie minicamp or not. We'll just see once he gets here.
So clearly they're playing a bit of the long game here with Josh Simmons, and that's totally fine. They are in the position to do that right now, but they view him as their left tackle of the future, John.
Right. Trey Smith, same thing. He fell down to the Chiefs in his pick, and so he's the guy with the franchise tag right now who they thought might reset the guard market. So, yeah, the Chiefs have gambled and come up big.
They will hopefully do that again with Josh Simmons. A shout-out as well to Lee's Summit North alum, Armand Membo. He has been drafted in the first round last night. He went 7th overall. 6'6", 320-pound offensive tackle. He anchored the right side of Mizzou's offensive line last year, and he will now go play for, sorry, buddy, the New York Jets. But either way, congratulations to a local kid who is now getting a chance to live out his NFL dream. But the NFL draft started last night with a shout-out for the President of the United States. Did you see this moment? They were in Green Bay last night, home of the Packers. Clay Matthews, a legendary linebacker for the Packers, was at the podium before the NFL draft began. This was just after 7 o'clock last night. I put this on right before putting the kids to bed, and I said, wait, did Clay Matthews just mention Donald Trump? Are we really going to go there? Is Donald Trump really going to be the thing that gets talked about coming out of the NFL draft last night? And it partially was when Clay Matthews said this.
Quick, Roger, but I just got off the phone with the president, Donald Trump. He asked me to pass a message along to all 32 NFL franchises. So let me tell you what it reads here, all right? It says, my fellow Americans, the Bears still suck!
Oh, man. That was Clay Matthews kicking off the draft. And the best part, if you haven't seen the video, I'll post it up on X at Pete Mundo. Roger Goodell has no idea this is coming, the commissioner of the NFL. He's standing off to the side, kind of stage left, and when Clay Matthews gets up there and he goes, I've received a message from the President of the United States, Goodell's like, what? He just kind of starts looking over. You see his head just twist right to the right. No. Yeah. He was like, oh, no, where's this going? You see him shoot a glance at Clay Matthews at the podium, and then he's trying to play it cool. Because I don't think Goodell, my sense is that Goodell had no idea that this was coming. And you can hear the cheers right out of the gates for Trump. Now, there's a smattering of boos on the back end when the soy boys and Karens, who must have been stumbling upon the NFL draft, they showed up from Madison, and they realized that, wait, Trump, boo, boo, TDS, TDS. But you can hear the immediate reaction is really loud cheers. And as Clay Matthews is setting this up, I'm like, I hope we don't get some cheesy statement. No one really wants to hear from the president on either side of the aisle right now. They just want to know who their team's going to pick. But it turned out to be a hilarious moment. And Clay Matthews shared the letter that Trump signed or, e-signed, whatever it is. It's a letter that says the Bears suck with Trump's signature on it. So clearly this was like sent over to Clay Matthews. He then reads it on the air. And for those saying that, this is hypocritical of those of us who thought this was a great moment last night. No. If it was like a real statement where it was like, the president wants to give his best wishes to all the young men who will be drafted tonight, I would have been like, please, nobody cares. It's irrelevant. Let's all just move on with the NFL draft, right? That would have been my reaction. I would have agreed with those of you who would have said, hey, we don't need to hear from Trump on this. Instead, what it was like a WWE moment last night. It was like professional wrestling. Trump in a swing state in Wisconsin that he wins, he won back in November. You're going to have a lot of his voters there. It's also NFL fans. Those are more likely to be Trump voters than Kamala voters. Trust me on that one, right? So you've got that molded into a state that he won, and then he gets to take a dig at their biggest rival, who's in a state that a Republican is never going to win in any of our lifetimes. Of course, Chicago and Illinois being the state. So it worked out perfectly. He also could have taken a shot at the Vikings and somehow tied in old Timmy Tim Rocket Man Walls into the mix. He could have done that. You can't take a shot at the Lions, obviously. He won Michigan. You don't want to go down that road. But that was perfect. Take a shot at Chicago. Take a shot at Illinois, a state a Republican will never win in our lifetimes, and you make a great moment out of it, and then you move on. It was perfect. And if that was Obama, I would have said the same thing. Now, Biden would have been lost. Biden would have been, yeah, we still hate the Cubs and the White Sox. Joe, wrong sport.
Come on, man.
Sorry, buddy. You mixed them up. But Obama could have pulled that off. Biden, not so much. But it was fine, okay? You're going to survive. If you're not a Trump voter and that upset you last night, it's going to be okay. I promise you it won't happen tonight when the second round starts, John.
Biden would be, I sit on the bleachers and my legs are hairy and the kids all come over and rub it.
The bleacher creatures take on a whole new meaning when they're rubbing down my legs, my hairy legs.
Boom, boom, boom.
Oh, man. Happy Friday morning. Glad you're here on KCMO Talk Radio, 95.7 FM. We are streaming all morning long on the KCMO Talk Radio app. Coming up, speaking of Trump, he got blocked again by a judge. Why and what does it mean now? We'll tell you next on KCMO Talk Radio, 95.7 FM. So another district court judge has decided to play president of the United States. Even though I don't hate the idea of what the judge was going for here, it still is just the latest example of a district court judge deciding, you know what, we're going to play the role of being more powerful than the president of the United States. So yesterday, a federal judge in Washington, D.C., wrote a 120-page opinion. Her name is Judge Colleen Kohler-Catelli, and she has blocked Donald Trump from requiring proof of citizenship to register to vote and ordering that election officials assess the citizenship of anyone who receives public assistance before allowing them to register. Now, obviously, I agree with what the president is doing here, or what he is attempting to do here. And frankly, I would ask you why you would not want this country to require proof of citizenship to register to vote. Like, unless you wanted to just outwardly admit that you try to cheat in elections, why would you not want this? I don't care who you are or who you voted for. Please sell me on the idea for why you should not be required to prove you are a citizen before you register to vote. Obviously, states have different laws, and that's where a lot of this is handled. But the administration was obviously trying to move ahead and make this a federal deal. Now, the district court judge wrote in this 120-page opinion, and I do wonder how this works. Like, why did it have to be 120 pages? Could we have done this in like 12? I don't know. I'm just a guy with a microphone here, but 120 pages on this is something. She writes here, our Constitution entrusts Congress and the states, not the president, with the authority to regulate federal elections. No statutory delegation of authority to the executive branch permits the president to short-circuit Congress's deliberative process by executive order. Now, in a perfect world, she's right. She is. I'll give her that. She's right. Like, yeah, I do want Congress and the states being in charge of this. Congress is just so worthless. And when you talk about devolving down this road of continuing to strip Congress of any meaningful duties and giving more and more power to the executive branch, this has been going on for years under both political parties. This is not unique to Trump's presidency. It was not unique to Biden's presidency. I mean, we've been trending down this direction of basically more and more of a king, or I guess a queen one day. We've been trending down this road for a long time. Trump is, yes, trying things that have not been tried before. There's no doubt about it when it comes to executive power. But he did not set the tone for this kind of a presidency. He didn't. Remember Obama? What was the infamous Obama line? I got my pen. I just need my pen. That was the Obama line. I'm paraphrasing here, but it was something about I got a pen.
Yep, got a pen.
I got a paper. I got my signature. I'll do what I want. Right? And now here's Trump, largely doing the same thing. Of course, it was not a constitutional crisis when Obama made the case that he could do what he wanted with his pen, but now it is with Donald Trump. That's how it works. So, of course, this U.S. District Judge is based out of Washington, D.C., the least shocking news you'll hear on a Friday morning.
Talk about a bombshell.
She's out of Washington, D.C. She puts out this opinion piece. And here was Scott Jennings on CNN last night making the case that these judges have gotten out over their skis.
I think there's a difference between saying whether you're complying with the law and then you have these individual district court judges setting effectively broad federal policy that is specifically reserved for the president of the United States. I think we do have a constitutional crisis, and it's being caused by these judges. They're not here to tell us. They're not here to tell us how to spend the money. They're not here to set broad federal policy. That is the president's job as elected by the people. These judges are supposed to be settling discrete, specific matters, not policy setting. I think Vance is right. I think Trump has a point. And these judges want nothing more to continue the lawfare against
I don't
Trump.
think anybody's going to be surprised to hear that you think Trump is
they're
right.
doing this on
However,
I get it. You want individual federal judges who hate Donald Trump.
No, I don't.
To tie him up for 4 years.
No, I don't.
If you want a big
Not
policy questions decided, let the Supreme Court do it. But in the interim, the executive has to be allowed to govern.
And that's where this should all end up as quickly as possible. Just get this stuff to the Supreme Court. Right? Like, you want to talk about a co-equal branch of government? Get the Supreme Court involved, get this stuff up there as quickly as possible, and let them decide. They are a co-equal branch of government. Executive, legislative, judicial. Let them get involved here and try to make that happen if you're the administration as quickly as possible, because then you can move on. Now, I do think politically speaking, this is a pretty good topic to lean in on if you're the administration. I'm not going to say it's issue number one, But if you're looking for something to lean in on, saying, hey, we got to make it so that no matter what, you have to be able to prove who you are to register to vote. Like, what's the case against it? Are they going to go back to, what was that, 2022, when Georgia passed voter ID law and everyone called it racist? If they want to go back to that, I guess we could go back to that. I think it would be wildly entertaining. I mean, they moved the freaking Major League Baseball All-Star game a couple of years back because of the voter ID law that people were convinced was somehow racist, when there was no evidence to back it up as being racist, but they did it anyway. And Major League Baseball, as woke as they have become, fell for it hook, line, and sinker. And they moved it to, I think it was Denver
Colorado.
that year. Yeah, they went out to Denver. So that was one of those things that you look back on and you say, yep, that happened, and it did not suppress anybody from going to the polls. It's actually racist to say that somebody of color is not able to get an ID. That's what's racist. To presume that somebody is too dumb or incapable of figuring out how to get themselves an ID. You're the racist. I mean, look in the mirror. That's what's going on here, right?
In the immediate aftermath, the elections had increase in turnout.
Yes.
Right?
Yes, that's right. That was in Georgia of that year, that midterm year. So that whole thing fell flat on its face. So if they want to bring this up now as a topic, I guess I'm here for it. I guess we can go down that road. But it certainly seems like something that, assuming you don't want people cheating, we should all be on the same page in making sure that you are required to show proof of citizenship to register to vote. Feels like a no-brainer. But then again, stuff that is very common sense these days, like let's keep the guys out of women's locker rooms, is lacking in common sense these days, sad to say. Pete Mundo on KCMO Talk Radio. It is so good to be here on a Friday morning of NFL Draft Week, of course. Chiefs taking Josh Simmons out of Ohio State. That was the big news late last night, the last pick in the first round. You may have been asleep for that, but they've got hopefully their left tackle for the future. Coming up next, the NFL draft, these players are going to make a lot of money, but what about wasting your money? And I will give you a reporter in town who just doesn't get it. Coming up next. Today is our buddy Greg Bennett's last day over at KCTV5 as the morning weather man, so there'll be a replacement at some point, but adios to old Greg, who, of course, you hear with the weather forecasts every morning on KCMO Talk Radio. Happy Friday. Glad you're joining us on 95.7 FM. So yesterday, if you missed it, this story is not getting nearly enough news in Kansas City media. You have Prairie Village, little Prairie Village, about 20,000 people up there in northeast Johnson County, voting this week in a city council meeting to send $23,000 to Ukraine for military drones. We had on Councilwoman Lori Sharp yesterday to explain how this outrageous decision comes to be. It got a lot of attention yesterday on social media. Of course, most other local media are not going to touch this thing. It's just not going to happen. You think the Kansas City Star is going to suddenly play taxpayer hawk and knock on Prairie Village for sending $23,000 to Ukraine for military drones? Over my dead body, are they going to do that?
Well, only if they think they didn't send enough money.
Yeah, that's a good point. Should have been 50. Double it, triple it. 3X, 3-to-1 match, courtesy of the Kansas City Star. They're matching dollar for dollar for this hour. So Lori Sharp explains this yesterday, and you don't have to be a Prairie Village resident to be outraged by this, because what we're seeing is property taxes go up all over the Kansas City metro. And you have cities who are now funneling tens of thousands of dollars to foreign countries. Like what? They're the State Department? Like they're USAID? What are we doing here?
And how it all started is a few weeks ago, the mayor of the city in Ukraine reached out to our mayor because we're sister cities. And he requested a phone call with our mayor and a couple council members. And he told about the horrible things, how their city has changed, what's going on. Now, they're not on the front of the fighting at all, but just obviously it's affecting them as a city as being part of Ukraine. And they were requesting monies to buy these military drones. So it came to the council two meetings ago, and we discussed it. And an article from Forbes magazine talked about these specific drones and how they're used in combat and delivering grenades to kill other soldiers and people. And it was very alarming to me and possibly other people on the council that this is what these drones would be used for. So the city administrator and people went back to the mayor, and they promised that they would only use the drones for delivering medicine and humanitarian relief, which still begs the question, is this really a city duty to supply foreign aid to a country? You know, my impression of a sister city is more of a cultural exchange.
That was Lori Sharp, Prairie Village councilwoman, yesterday here on KCMO. You can hear the entire conversation on the podcast. We break them all out. You can hear it there, Apple or Spotify. But how insane is that? And I know because other media folks in Kansas City commented on this yesterday. We shared this far and wide. Every media outlet in Kansas City knows this story. None of them, from what I can tell, are covering it. None of them. In fact, our post on X yesterday got thousands of views, and there was one NPR reporter here in Kansas City, I won't even give his name because it's not worth the time of day, who said, just in case anyone is wondering, $23,000 is only like 0.7% of the Prairie Village budget, or 0.07% of the Prairie Village budget. That's not the point, chump. That's not the point. If now we're justifying basically sending foreign aid to other cities in Ukraine out of the Prairie Village budget, then guess what? There's too much money being taken from the Prairie Village resident. And if that's the case that you want to make, and the pitch that you want to make to the taxpayer as a supposed reporter, air quotes here in Kansas City, be my guest. But they can't fund that crap sandwich of an operation fast enough in Washington, D.C. Could you guys in Congress get on this thing? Could you defund National Panhandler Radio by now? If they want to be activists, right? I mean, that's fine. You can be an opinion person if you want. That's what I do every day. This is an opinion show. But I don't mask it under the guise of, we are a news outlet and we are here for the public good and we are just here to serve the people and bring them information. No, you're a left-wing hack operation, and that's fine. That's your prerogative. You're allowed to be that, but you don't get to accept taxpayer monies to do that. It is insane that this has happened here, and I didn't realize this till it came up yesterday on the show as well, because some of the trolls on my social media pages were like, you'd be fine if it was Israel. No, I wouldn't be. Nope. It is not the job of our city governments in Kansas to play State Department and send money to foreign countries. That is ridiculous.
We brought up yesterday, didn't Leewood send money to Israel?
They did.
They were another city subject, point in case.
And I'm Team Israel, and I totally support Israel, but I would not support Leewood, which they did about a year and a half ago, sending money to cities in Israel. That's ridiculous. Travis, go ahead. You're on KCMO.
Hey, so Pete, here's kind of the bigger picture of this is these city council members, you got to watch out on them because they're at the bottom of the ballot whenever we elect these officials. And most times people don't know who they're electing. These guys go door to door. These guys go door to door and they talk about things and they tell the voters what they kind of want to hear. But you got to vet them to understand who they are and what they're doing. There's a lot of influence on these city councils, specifically in Johnson County, that comes from the Board of County Commissioners as well. So don't think for one moment Mike Kelly's not involved in trying to help encourage these young, aspiring politicians that want to get out of Prairie Village and go on to better things like within the state or national politics. They get influenced by these guys. You've got to know who they are and vote them out. That's how easy it is. Vote them out. Get them out of here.
You got to pay attention to who they are. You're right. I mean, there's a lot to celebrate right now, Travis, in the national political arena. But people got to realize these folks in charge locally, man, they do not share your values. They are on a mission to get themselves elected to other positions and waste your money wherever and however they can.
And to be honest with you, Pete, the ease of access to your money is a lot easier at the local level. And by the way, whenever they spend this money, unless the media or someone like you exposes it, no one knows it's even happening.
Yeah. No, you're right. Thank you, Travis. Happy weekend, man. I appreciate you. You're right. So that's an excellent point, too. I mean, I just stumbled upon the story. I'm in a bunch of different social media groups. I think I saw this on Facebook where people were like complaining about Prairie Village spending $23,000 on military drones in Ukraine. And like most things, or not most things, but a lot of things on Facebook, I'm like, all right, let me find out what this is all about. Because you see a lot of nonsense on Facebook that's just, I mean, the definition of fake news.
Fake news.
But sure enough, I start reaching out to people and officials, and they're like, oh, yeah, we voted on that on Monday night. Yeah, we're sending them $23,000. And what's the response from reporters in Kansas City, at least at KCUR? It's nothing. That's a fraction of the budget. Sure, go door to door with that pitch, buddy. See how that works out for you.
It's only a couple of apartment complexes in Colorado. Small number.
Yes. Yeah. We're not being overrun by gangs in Denver. It's just, a couple of complexes. Mm-hmm. What was that? Martha Raddatz, right, with ABC?
Yeah.
Oh, my goodness. Good grief. Well, hoping the Chiefs got a good one last night. Josh Simmons, offensive tackle from the Ohio State University. I hate when Ohio State does that. The Ohio State. The my you-know-what. Come on, guys. Enough of that. So Josh Simmons, 6'5", 310-pound left tackle, top 10, top 15 talent, fell down to the Chiefs at the end of the first round because he suffered a knee injury last October that he's recovering from. But if they hit on this, they are going to be in great shape. Now, one of the biggest sports media personalities was nowhere to be found last night for the first round of the NFL draft, and that would be Shannon Sharpe. Now, Shannon Sharpe used to be at Fox Sports. He's now a contributor at ESPN. Reports are he's making about $6.5 million doing that. He's got a podcast deal. You may recall he was the only sports personality to interview Kamala Harris during the election cycle. Former Denver Bronco, obviously, in his heyday. And he was pitching his podcast network for $100 million in recent weeks. Then he gets slapped with this $50 million lawsuit by a woman who has made all these allegations against him, has released audio of Shannon saying some horrible things to her, how he would hurt her and things like that. So now Shannon Sharpe has announced yesterday that he is stepping away temporarily from his ESPN duties. Now, it's nice of him to announce he's stepping away. ESPN may also have an opinion on that. But he says that he will be back on ESPN at the start of the NFL preseason coming up in late July. Whether or not that happens, once again, remains to be seen. He put out a statement yesterday. Did you see this? He put up a statement on his social media. What an idiot. So what happened here is, and you can tell this is what happened. His lawyer sent him a text message of what the statement should read, and he screenshotted the text from his lawyer and shared that as his statement. But you can tell it's not his statement because, like, when you text somebody on your iPhone, the right side is blue when you write, and then the other side is like gray when the person you're talking to is writing. He screenshotted the text message, and it's a gray text message, clearly from his attorney, and it reads, "My statement is found here, and this is the truth." It's like, dude, you were supposed to copy this and post it yourself, not screenshot your lawyer's PR statement. You doofus. I mean, this is, oh my goodness. Not that I thought that Shannon Sharpe was a candidate for Mensa, but if I needed confirmation of that, this was it right here. Screenshotting the text from the attorney and then sharing that as your statement is not what you were supposed to do. Oh my goodness. Oh, but then there's a broader picture here as well on Shannon Sharpe. And that is that we have to stop looking at what Shannon Sharpe was doing was allegedly having a relationship that he claims is consensual. Obviously, she claims is not, with someone who is younger than his children. It's really gross, and whether he's guilty or not, the guy's a loser. I mean, he is a stone-cold loser. You know how you avoid this? You get married, and you stay married to the same person, and it solves these problems, assuming you're married to the right person. I don't know who's right here. I really don't. But at the very least, Shannon Sharpe is a pathetic loser for being a man in his late 50s hooking up with a 19-year-old from OnlyFans. You know what you should be doing at that age? Like watching your grandkids play, having a beer with your kid or your son-in-law or something like that. That's what you should be doing. Instead, this guy was getting caught up in drama with a 19-year-old who sells her body on the internet. It's pitiful. Some people glorify this stuff, but Shannon Sharpe is a pitiful man. And he's throwing away potentially tens of millions of dollars. I mean, she wants $50 million in the lawsuit. He apparently offered her $10 million. At the very least, this was going to cost him $10 million. And now potentially he's lost a $100 million podcast deal. He's making $6.5 million from ESPN. That may go away very soon. His career may be over. He may have lost 9 figures worth of income for the next few years for a 19-year-old who sells herself on the internet. The story here is not about whether or not he's right or she's right. That's obviously the news side of this, the legal side of this. But the broader conversation that in an era when people just go on the internet and hook up, that we should be having is what a loser Shannon Sharpe ultimately is here in all this. 913-408-7957. So my question for you, if push comes to shove, will you really buy Made in America? We'll talk about it, and I'll ask you that question next. We all say Made in America. We love it, right? I love it. You love it. At what price point? That's my question for you on a Friday. Good morning. Glad you're here on KCMO Talk Radio. So we know that these tariffs obviously will at some point likely have an impact on the price of things here in this country. The long-term play is to obviously figure out a way for the global economy to be less reliant on China. That's an admirable cause that the president is taking up. There is no case, I don't care how much TDS you have, there is no case to continue to do business with the Chinese Communist Party, which is obviously trying to take over the world. None whatsoever. Moving as much of our trade out of China is a good thing, and the rest of the world should be on board with that. Of course, the tariff wars are never going to be ideal, but the long-term goal is one that we should hopefully believe will work out. But right now, the question is on the short term is, all right, what does this mean? How much are people actually willing to spend when we say something is made in America? Will they pay more for that thing? So this was something that went viral on social media yesterday, and I'm going to get you in the mix here at 913-408-7957. You tell me how much you try to find made in America, how much more you're willing to spend on something made in America, because at least this example is not a good sign for America as a whole. This guy is Ramon Van Meer. He is a Shark Tank alum. You know, the show on CNBC, Mr. Wonderful, Mark Cuban, the whole deal, right? People get on the show. They're entrepreneurs, and they obviously have a product that they are pitching, and they want investment in from one of the Shark Tank folks. So this guy's a Shark Tank alum, and he did a test here. He has shower heads, and he got 25,650 users to the same landing page. The only difference, one of the shower heads was made in China. You can see it here. I'll share it on X. That's where I saw it. You can see it here. The shower heads are basically the exact same. One is made in China at $129. But he frames it as made in Asia. And the other one says made in the USA. And under Made in the USA, it says, due to the new tariffs, we've partnered with a small manufacturer in the United States that can also produce our shower heads. We're now offering our customers the option to choose between a USA-made or an overseas-made shower head. The one that is made in China, $129. The one made in the USA, $239. What came out of it? Out of the 25,000 visitors, over 3,500 bought the Asian-made version. 0 bought the USA one. So we can all sit here and say, hey, made in the USA, I'll pay a little bit more. What does a little bit mean? How much more are you actually willing to spend? Now, this is just one example, and we all say we want to bring back domestic manufacturing, but when consumers face the actual price tag, they're not doing it. See, I don't think it's because people don't care. I don't think it's because they don't want to do the right thing. I think it's in part because people, one, have just been stretched so thin by the last few years and the 20% inflation that we've all lived with since 2021. And also, they're not willing to pay the premium just yet. This is a story that's about reshoring and tariffs and the real economics behind American made. And it's not something that you change the attitude of Americans on overnight. You're just not going to do it. It's going to take time. That's why no one's tried this. Like, that's what we've talked about since day one of Trump's plan here. There's a reason this hasn't been tried. As admirable as it is, there's a reason it hasn't been tried. And that's because Americans are obsessed with the here, the now. It's why no one cares about the federal debt anymore because, $36 trillion, whatever, it doesn't impact me. Where are we going to dinner tonight? We are so hung up on what we want right now. And we don't care about tomorrow. We don't care about next week. We certainly don't care about, hey, what happens to the country if when I'm gone and my kids and my grandkids are around and we're in $100 trillion in debt and China's taking over the world? We don't think about that. We should, but we don't. So if we don't care about it, why is our political class going to care about it? Especially when they're the ones who are arguably, trying to make money, wink, wink, nod, nod, trying to get reelected, trying to maintain or grow their power. And they're like, well, if these lemmings don't care, why should we? It's admirable what Trump is attempting to do. But when the proof is in the pudding on whether or not people will buy Made in the USA for significantly more money, the problem that he's going to run into, politically speaking, is that the American people across the aisle obviously aren't there yet. I still want it to work out. I want him to stay the course for now. I do. I'm behind him 100% on this deal. But we also have to pick up our end of the bargain here as well. And it's not easy. Robert's in Kansas City. Hey, Robert, you're on KCMO.
Hey, I'm just going to bring up, so I'm a gun enthusiast. There's an optics company named Holosun. Have you ever heard of them?
No.
Okay, so if you're into guns, the major red dots for like handguns and whatnot, you got Trijicon, Holosun, Aimpoint, companies like that. Holosun is made out of China. They're actually owned, like the Hwanik Corporation pays for the R&D of the People's Liberation Army. So many gun enthusiasts who you think are pretty conservative people, they would rather buy Holosun because it's half the price.
So you're confirming this, right? You're basically saying, hey, people do not put their money where their mouth is when it comes to Made in the USA.
Oh, yeah. I only buy Trijicon, or I tell people, hey, buy Trijicon, buy Aimpoint. Aimpoint's made out of Sweden. But people are like, oh, no, Holosun, it's just as good. And, it saves me half as much. I'm like, dude, for that $400, $500 optic that's American made, you could save like going out to eat for like a month, and you'd have it paid for.
Yeah.
But they would rather buy Chinese crap that actually funds the weapons development out of the Chinese Communist Party and will be used to kill Americans and Taiwanese.
Thank you, Robert.
It really makes me angry.
Yeah.
And patriotic Americans that say, oh, I love the Second Amendment, they still want to buy Chinese crap.
Well said. Well said, Robert. I mean, you nailed it, man. I mean, that's just one of the many examples, whether it's the showerhead example I gave or you're talking about, obviously, rah-rah Second Amendment Americans who are also buying the Chinese nonsense. Mike in Kansas City, go ahead. You're on KCMO.
Yeah, there's also a situation with the quality of stuff that comes out of China and India. I'll give you one example. I found a YouTube video where they were testing anvils of all things. And they had an American-made anvil, which, of course, was more expensive, and they tested it against a Chinese anvil, and an anvil came from India. The Indian and the Chinese anvils blew up under pressure because they got those pressure machines. The American anvil never failed. Now, it may not mean anything, but, an anvil is something that they last for a century or more. You can buy them from the 19th century. They still work as good as when they were made. Mm-hmm. But when somebody's using that in their business, I'm not talking about hobbyists, but using their business, that anvil will fail, pieces will break, somebody's going to get hurt. And that's just, one example here. But, the guy was talking about the electronic sight. How long is that sight going to last? That's the other thing. You buy all this stuff from China that's cheaper, but it lasts half or even a third of what the quality-made product would be.
Yeah, but
so
here's
more
the thing.
To it than just the cost.
You're right. You're right. I mean, listen, there's no doubt about it, Mike. You're right. A lot of the stuff that we get from China is absolute garbage, right? 4 to 5 kids' toys come from China. Trust me, I got them all over the house. They're mostly garbage. You're right about that. But let's say you have, and I'm just throwing out something, a refrigerator, okay? And if the refrigerator has a lot of parts that come from China and it breaks in a couple of years, you don't immediately think to yourself, well, if I had that one from the United States, would it have lasted 4 years? You just think about, dang it, my fridge is broken, I got to get it fixed. Like, it's just, you can't really comprehend it or compare it right there in the moment. You're right. I see what you're going for there. I do. But it's also not oftentimes how people consume or buy things. Mike and Olathe, go ahead.
Hey, just thinking out loud here. I mean, eventually there's not going to be enough product from China if we keep them from bringing things in. We're going to have no choice but to buy whatever's on the shelf. But what about the way we subsidize all these wind farm companies and all these other these environmental things we've been funding forever? There's got to be a few $100 billion there that we can help subsidize, maybe a Vietnam or an India or something like that, just to keep the cheap goods going while we're building manufacturing plants here. There has to be a way to move the puzzle pieces around with whatever's in the budget to help that, and then politicians have to get on board first. You said it right. We don't care because they don't care. Well, they need to start caring, and it's going to have to be our side that does it because the left isn't going to help.
See, I disagree with you there. I think that they don't care because we, the people, haven't given them a reason to care.
Well, that's true. We've got like 40 years of habits, however long it was when we let China have membership in the whatever it was that gave them like free access to everything. We started doing more trade with them. Maybe it was Clinton. And so we've just got kind of fat, dumb, and happy with it, and it's convenient. You're right. So eventually, maybe it's just going to have to be that these products aren't there anymore.
Yeah. Well, also, when we started our trading with China, they weren't run by this thug Xi.
Good point.
So it was a different world back then, and now, obviously, Xi has much different interests and goals than, the Chinese had 25 years ago. So you got that element as well. There has been a Frank White sighting, at least via text message. See, I've texted Frank before, but I never get a response. I know.
Talk about a bombshell.
Can't believe it, man.
Maybe that's what those drones were doing a few months ago back there in Jersey.
So Jackson County is inching closer towards an official recall of the county executive, Frank White Jr. But there's still a few things that obviously have to be finalized. Votes have to be counted. They got to get to 43,000 votes counted and confirmed to get a recall effort on the ballot. When that time comes, they have 60 days. The legislature has 60 days to pick a date to hold a special election to recall the county executive. That could cost up to $1 million, depending on how many polling locations there are and everything else. So that remains to be seen in terms of how that would play out. But the Kansas City Star did get a hold of Frank White yesterday, and they asked him whether he wanted to discuss the recall effort. And Frank's quote to the Kansas City Star via text message is, "Not really. I'll just continue to do the work."
He's a nut job.
Do what work? What work has Frank White done in months in this community?
Well, it's that time of day to do what we do every day at this time.
Thank you, Kamala.
Right.
I appreciate that. I mean, did he get confused? Did he think it was the manager of the Monarchs texting him and saying, "Hey, let's get to work"? And he's like, "Don't worry, I'm working on my tap cushion for the first base job that I've got. Don't worry, I'm studying up on the lineup for the Lincoln Salt Dogs coming up here in a couple of weeks." What work? Frank doesn't show up to the commission meetings. His chief of staff, when asked by Sean Smith, doesn't know where the guy is. The chief of staff says he does not know where the county executive is in Monday meetings. And he tells the Kansas City Star in a text message, "Don't worry, I'm just going to keep my head down and continue to do the job." The guy has not done the job in months. And there is zero sympathy here on my end. And I keep seeing this stuff on social media, and I see some of this too in local media, and it's like, and people will whisper to me in local media, "Man, this Frank White story, what a fall from grace. Guy was a legend, Kansas City guy through and through, legend with the Royals." I don't have any sympathy. I don't. The only people I have sympathy for in the Frank White ongoing saga are the homeowners in Jackson County who have spent 2 years wondering whether or not they can stay in their homes because they got incorrect assessments and the county has basically told them to pound sand at every turn, even as the state has tried to obviously alleviate the problem. The county executive has been the one standing in the way. And for Frank White to look back on, let's say, the vote with the Royals and the Chiefs last year and come to the conclusion that he was on the right side because he was against the sales tax extension and the county voters stood by him, it's comical. Nobody is standing by this guy. There are very few things in Kansas City or America today that are bipartisan. The one thing in Jackson County that is bipartisan right now is getting rid of the county executive. And we do at least have a sighting. He is alive. I wondered that for the last few weeks, if he was actually alive. He is alive. He is texting the Kansas City Star, and I will not hold my breath waiting for my own text return at some point here in the next couple of days. In the meantime, we got to give a shout-out to our boy Mark Van Sickle, who nailed it. I mean, Mark, you nailed it yesterday when you predicted the Chiefs to do exactly what they were going to do. Here's the audio. Mark, I know you've done like 73 mock drafts, so you might have a player for me that you like tonight.
Yeah, I've got, Josh Simmons, the offensive tackle from Ohio State.
I've seen his name.
If he falls down, he's been a little bit injured, but he's one guy.
Nailed it, brother. Well done. Very nice job there, Mark.
Thank you. And on Keats's show, I expanded a little bit more, saying he should be a top 10 pick. And Andy Reid said the same thing. So.
I know. Andy said just as much last night.
Yeah, I think what you heard from the guys announcing this thing was true. I mean, he would have been top 5 or 10 pick, and so it's a position that we can use some good players at. I mean, just an addition of good players. You can't. Yeah, and in particular at the left tackle spot, if and when he can jump in there and do that. So, and he's flexible where he can play any spot. But we felt like he was a true left tackle there.
There you go. That was Andy Reid last night after the first round of the NFL draft when they took Ohio State offensive tackle Josh Simmons.
They already added Jalen Moore, so they have a guy that can play at left tackle this year. They can basically redshirt Simmons if they need to, and then have him start in 26.
Redshirt, little college verbiage there for the NFL. I like that. Nice job there, Mark. Excellent analysis. We got you covered here. We got the local news, the national news, the worldwide news, and we got the guys making the best sports predictions in town right there on the other side of the glass.